hinge assembly and on the piece of metal that he's got. He's got them both clamped to a piece of aluminum flat stock, and that way he can weld it all along the edge here, get a good weld. Down at the other end, where we told you about cutting it off, there's a piece that's going to weld on the back of here that's going to have the bolt holes in it it's going to bolt on. Well, that piece is already bolted to the chassis. We're going to go look at that in a second. And this end of it will be welded when it's put onto the car. Okay, we're back over here at the car, and this is the lower hinge plate that Rob and Chris made. It's 3/8 of an inch thick to space the hinge out down at the bottom. You'll recall we talked about that. And it's bolted on. One of the bolts comes from the inside, and the other one's from the outside, and it's bolted on. And then you see where it's been buff shiny. That's when we bring the other hinge over here and get it bolted on. This will weld to it. It will tack weld it on here, so it's in exactly the right place. Remembering now that we got these pieces of steel on here holding this door in place, and it ain't moving. I can shake the car, but I can't move the door. The whole point is get that door where you want it and make everything, and then we'll cut those straps when it's time to open the door. Okay, so this has been welded and it's been ground flush on both sides. And the back side of it has to be especially ground flush because it's going to fit up against the chassis, and you want it to fit flat up against the chassis. And we're going to go try it on. To help in getting the holes in the right place, because the original hinge had 2 holes in it, of course, and we know that this top hole here is one that lined up with what we had in the car. It would bolt in, so we're using the original hinge as a template to drill the second hole, and trying to get the hinge square to the axis of the pin. And of course, if we're going to drill the hole out, it's going to end up being a little bit bigger than these holes that are in the bracket. That'll give us an idea where the second hole goes for the pin, or for the hinge. Okay, now you can see he's got the hinge bolted in with these top 2 holes, and it's sitting in there just about like it's going to be when it's finished. Notice the pin is pretty much vertical, and then down here at the bottom, there's still a gap between the bottom of this bracket and the face of this other bracket. So we're going to build that up, and then these are going to get welded together. Right now he's working on the piece that's going to go in here to replace that wishbone piece that we cut out. He's actually going to use the wishbone we cut out, but he's going to invert it the other direction, flip it over upside down, and we'll show you that when we get to it. But you can hear the saw running in the background. They're making parts right now. Okay, we're still in the process. We've made a couple of 3/8 inch thick steel plates that are going to bolt onto the original bolt holes in the door. And there's one down here on the bottom that's already bolted on. And then we're going to be putting this piece in, which is the piece we took out of there, only it's turned over, right? Yep, it's flipped over end for end. And so this used to be down when the hinge was, before we cut the hinge originally. Oh, this is the one from the other side. Okay, that's the way he's going to do it. So the one from the other side is this piece here. We're swapping sides with them. And this will weld on right here. First of all, we'll get these pieces bolted in. Then this piece will weld on right here. And it'll be tack welded on up here. Then we'll pull the whole thing out, weld it up real good. And it should work. Show a little bit of view of it. You can see what it looks like. See, here's a piece that we welded on the end of this hole. Remember we did the hinges earlier? Drilled the holes earlier? Okay, we'll be back. Okay, we've taken the hinge off so we can make a little bit of clearance for this plate in here. And one thing I didn't mention to you earlier was that if you see the sheet metal here is a step above the sheet metal right in this area. Same thing here, it steps down from here to here. And so we had when the hinge was just on there, we had a washer behind the brackets here in these 2 positions, so that that surface would be out equal with this surface. So it'd be out flush with this surface, so the hinge doesn't bind so the hinge doesn't bind in this direction, you know, like this. When it's folded up here, it would pull away out here because of this line right here. So we put washers on each one of these two screw heads behind the hinge.
You got to make one adjustment.
Yeah, well, we do have the slotted bracket on the top, so we can adjust it a little bit too. Yeah, here's a you know, the washers were in like this, and between the hinge and the chassis, and that made that surface flush with this surface on the left here. Made it flush with this metal surface here. Now in here we're putting washers behind this plate that Chris is putting in, and go ahead. And the reason we're doing that is because all the metal in the hinge assembly is going to flex a little bit when we're all done, and when we cut that door loose. And we're putting some washers in there so that the washers are about 90 thousandths thick. And that way we got about 90 thousandths of preload on the door. When we put this thing together for the last time, we probably won't use the washers. And that means it'll pull that door in tight against the hinge again. Because all this metal that's in this hinge assembly is going to flex. And whether believe it or not, it will. It did on the last one. And so we're putting the washers behind this bracket. Okay, like I said, we put washers behind this bracket. We don't intend on having the washers here when we're done, but we figured there's going to be enough flex in this whole mechanism that it's going to pull the door, that the door is going to sag just a little bit because of all the flex. Now, I was going to show you these pieces before we put them together. This is we're going to call this a yoke. This is the yoke from the other side. It's going to be welded onto those two brackets that are up inside the door frame. This is the hinge assembly. We will be pulling it out again. We'll be looking at it again because it's going to be painted and all the welding is going to be finished and ground. But you see we have a step here. This piece steps back quite a bit. That's because of the difference in the step between this pad area and this pad area. This one sticks out further. It looks like about a ½ inch. And we want the hinge to be straight up and down when looked at from the front of the car. And we're going to put it together, see what it looks like. I'm on live. Here we've got the yoke in here. Did I call it a yoke before? Yep. Well, it's a yoke today. And you'll see the metal's ground here. We've got a little bit of space between the yoke and the metal plates because that's where Rob's going to be doing all the welding. And same thing down at the bottom.